back to our sequence on the engineering design cycle. This session focuses on identifying and designing potential solutions to the problem that we've identified and researched the need for in the market and society. In this first step of actually designing, we will identify the possibilities for solutions, from the incremental to the unlikely to the wild and crazy. At this stage, it's important again to reopen our minds and listen to all the voices on our team, in order that we leave no possible avenue to solution unexplored before we start filtering and distilling the possibilities down to the most viable ones to take forward in this design cycle. Here we are again in the engineering design cycle. We are now in the third phase, where we will be designing solutions to the problem we have both identified and researched up to this point. In the process of identifying possible solutions, there are a huge range of places we can look. After another sweep of all possible external sources, we will return to our design team and reach inside our minds for the many possibilities and approaches to solving the design problem. This is a slightly different type of brainstorming and will need to be documented even more so than in the first phase of the design cycle, where we identified the problem. In this session, we will look at the use of mind maps to document not only our own ideas, but also the ideas of others on the design team. But first, we'll take a sweeping look at the external world to absorb ideas for designs that others may have already tried. In taking another peek at the outside world, we may start by searching out solutions to ours and similar designs on the World Wide Web. We may also ask potential users what types of solutions they would like to see to address our design problem. What are the limits of the design solutions from the user perspective? What is the user or customer willing to accept or not accept? A few casual conversations with potential users can go a long way at this point to guide this part of the design process. We can also tap into our professional as well as our personal networks to understand more about what potential customers might be interested in with regard to the design or the eventual product. Within our professional networks, we can also ask alternatively how others with technical expertise would solve the problem. While our professional and personal networks may give us some ideas that seem totally bizarre, somewhere in this kind of informal and casual feedback, we may find something totally useful too. Above and beyond these more informal means to identify possibilities, we can also search patents online and offline to understand whether there are unique ideas that have been used to solve similar problems. We can also turn again to the peer-reviewed literature, and especially literature review articles that can give us a full sweep of the many types of solutions to particular classes of problems. And finally, both ads and articles published in trade magazines can complement our sweep of potential solutions already out there in the world. While we have already done some of this reading to identify the problem and research the need, in this phase of the design cycle, we are specifically looking to feed the brainstorming process, feed the idea pipeline to identify possible solutions to our design problem. Once we have fed our brains, nuggets, and ideas, it's time to move on to brainstorming the many possibilities. Now that we've fed our brains, nuggets, and ideas, it's time to move on to brainstorming for solutions to our design problem. This time, we are likely to brainstorm as part of a team, preferably with no more than 6 people at the table at once, to allow ample time and space for all voices to be heard. At this time, we can also take a look around us at products that are designed with similar objectives or with similar properties to the design that we intend to pursue. This process of looking around and observing feeds our minds even more, expanding the creativity with which we will generate possible solutions in this next phase of design. Next, as a team, we need to choose a tool or tools that support stimulating ideas, whether that's a mind map, a series of post-it notes, a combination, or another tool entirely. We will be recording all ideas and then organizing them in such a way that it makes sense to the design team, and the reasons for rejecting some ideas and choosing others are apparent, should we have to defend our choices in the future. While it may not seem like it's worth the time, organizing and documenting ideas at this point can often be critical, as it provides a place to return to when something goes wrong at later phases in the design cycle. In this session, we will look specifically at the mind map as a tool for documenting, organizing, and storing our ideas for future evaluation and use. A mind map is particularly well suited to laying out potential solutions to a design problem. As a visual aid, it automatically tells us what types of solutions or creative space we have covered well and which may need some more attention. It is very important for the design team to develop their own personal style of mind mapping, specifically with regard to the one who chooses the form of mind map and lays that out for the rest of the team. In this and subsequent slides, we'll provide some general guidelines for creating mind maps, but ultimately, it's up to the team to add style and substance to their mind map in a way that best suits the team and its creative process. Guidelines for mind mapping include starting in the center with an image or other visual aid that gives an intuitive feel to what the mind map is about. In our case, at this stage of the design cycle, the central image should be a picture or sketch of the final product or use of the final design. Using multiple colors can give some indication of the application of the product or design, but mostly colors are used to identify major types of pathways that the team is considering in how to solve the problem. A radial hierarchy that extends from the center image, identifying different sets of ideas, different modes of solution, helps to keep the mind map useful as a decision tool in subsequent phases of the design cycle. And finally, a mind map should emphasize the visual, using lines, graphics, and connections that make it easy to follow, from the central image to the ends of the furthest connections from that central image. Here is an example of a mind map structured under the guidelines just addressed in the previous slide. Notice how color is used to separate categories of ideas, and connections are made hierarchically so that organization extends from the image in the center outward to the outer reaches of the mind map. Mind maps may start out in a very rough sketch, but can evolve into a more formal document later as the design team fills in the mind map, makes changes, reorganizes, and otherwise moves things around during the brainstorming process. In the end, a mind map, even in black and white, should look organized and be quick and easy to understand. The mind map at this phase should cover all ideas, from incremental to unrealistic, and best attempt to organize them by approach, type of implementation, or other commonalities. The mind map is definitely not just an exercise, but an opportunity to prove that your team was diligent and explored all the possibilities during this phase of the design process, so that in the next phase of the design, a final choice is made based on logical and rigorous analysis rather than on gut feel or random choice. While the initial mind map may start out in black and white and quite sketchy, once the design team has completed its brainstorming during looking at solutions to the design problem, deciding on how ideas should be organized, and sketching everything out on paper, It's time to go back and add images, color, and connections that make the map easy and more appealing for an outsider to understand. While the mind map is not the only tool that can be used to identify the possibilities for solving a design problem, it is one of the more useful ones, not only for the team to organize ideas, but to provide a document that can be referred back to later if a design choice fails or needs further justification or modification. This concludes our brainstorming during the design solutions phase of the engineering design cycle. Thank you for joining us. We certainly hope that this session has been helpful in providing a means to organize, support, and document your team's efforts in identifying possibilities, and that you'll join us again as we take a detailed look at other phases of the design cycle.